Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. This is part 3 of the running back rankings. So if you have been listening, and if you're listening to the overall one, you just heard tier 1 and tier 2, but it's been a couple days for me and Dale here. So find us over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin or at Dynasty_Dale. Dale, pretty good bowl game yesterday. The championship game, complete blowout there by
It was
Georgia.
horrible.
I
It was horrible. I did not watch it. I'm glad I didn't even waste time watching.
I asked Megan, my wife. She does not like sports at all. She just does not care about sports. I said, "Do you know who's playing?" She goes, "Georgia." And I said, "Yeah, and TCU." And I said, "Do you know who's gonna win?" And she goes, "Georgia." Said it so confidently. She has no idea. I was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. They're going to blow them out." And lo and
Right,
behold,
right.
oh my goodness, that was an ass whooping. So, all right. That said, it kind of stunk because you didn't get to see many highlights from many of the TCU players, but
Yeah.
the Georgia defense, man, is just on another level. And TCU, it was a Cinderella story for sure, but yeah, it had to come to an end, I guess. So
Yeah.
I was hoping to see a lot of Kendre Miller, who we just talked about on last episode, but
Agreed.
yeah, didn't get that
Agreed. But
chance
yeah,
because it was
yes.
such a ass whooping. But all right,
Well,
so that's
well, 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 and on top of that, like he had his knee injury, so
yeah, that is true.
yeah, so that's going to be something to look out for like future. But I don't think that's going to affect his draft stock.
He's a running back. What running back doesn't have a knee injury? So
I know.
so it's crazy, and we're talking about running backs here. So this is tier 3 of the running backs. Thank you guys for tuning in for this one as well. And this is some spicy names here today. We got 4 guys that we're going to talk about, but I am just gonna be a little transparent here. So Bijan Robinson, we talked about him in tier 1. He's our 1A, kind of a tier of his own almost there. But he's kind of becoming the consensus number 1 dynasty running back. And I'm in a startup right now, and it's gonna start tomorrow or Thursday. It's gonna start Thursday, first thing in the morning, and I'm in the 6th. I'm gonna be the 6th pick. It's a super flex, so probably all your top quarterbacks are going to be gone, and I'm going to have a choice between Bijan Robinson or Justin Jefferson. So it's going to be interesting to see what I actually end up doing. But the hype that Bijan gets, I feel like I could get Justin Jefferson plus at this point, which is going to be crazy. So
I would definitely agree with that. I mean, if you make the pick, I would go JJ all day.
right.
But
Well, it's also
that's
tight in
just me.
premium. It's tight in premium, so I'm also thinking
Ooh,
Pitts there. So it's going to be tough
yeah,
there, but
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
just to be transparent with everybody, I said trade Bijan Robinson, but I'm almost thinking of taking him so I can trade him actually closer to the actual NFL
Yeah,
draft. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting because we're doing a rookie plus vet draft here, where you're kind of drafting rookie picks. You're not. We'll take
hmm
the rookie picks after the actual NFL draft and everything. So if I take a rookie pick, the first rookie pick, the 101, I'm not guaranteed to take Bijan Robinson at this point in time. I could always flex out of that if I wanted to, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where a lot of these rookie picks start to fall with the startup here. And there's a couple names here that we're going to talk about here shortly that I think are going to go higher in this startup than I probably anticipate with those rookie picks. But, I like these guys, but there's some question marks on them. And I think that's the best way to kind of to talk about them right here. So the first guy in this tier that I wanted to talk about with you is going to be Zach Evans. And Zach Evans is pretty much the universal number 3 guy for a lot of people right now. He's listed at 5'11", 212 pounds, played for TCU for 2 years, and then transferred over to Ole Miss, where he played a full season as a junior there. Pretty interesting breakdown, through 2 years at TCU, 146 carries, 1,000 yards, 1,063 if you're being precise there, 9 touchdowns, 18 catches, 200 yards, a touchdown there. 1 year at Ole Miss, 144, so 2 less carries. So he got a lot more usage at Ole Miss than he did at TCU. Almost the same amount of yards, 930 versus 1,060, so a little bit less there. Same 9 touchdowns, 12 catches. So he's a very good prospect. But here's the thing with Zach Evans, and I'm not sold on him being as good as a lot of people. And when you start to talk about him, I'll show a couple highlights here, but I think that he's a big play kind of guy. He's a powerhouse kind of guy on the ground. He's got a lot of tools that are very good, but the one thing that does have me really worried about him is his pass catching usage. And I don't think he's the most natural pass catching back. And for fantasy football, all I ever play in is PPR. I don't do standard at all ever. It's just boring. And half point PPR, yeah, it's just kind of watered down a little bit. It neuters some of those top guys. I like having more options, your Amon-Ra, St. Browns, those type of guys who are more PPR machines, right? So I like full PPR. I'm never going to play in a half or a standard. And in that case, Zach Evans is someone that makes me a little nervous. And, 10 touchdowns, 20 touchdowns total in his career. We're talking about a couple guys last time, Kendre Miller, Zach Charbonnet. These guys are in tier 2, and they're just smoking him in terms of touchdowns. They find the end zone. There's no question whether they're going to be able to get in the end zone. So, I don't know. Zach Evans is someone that I like, but I'm just not as sold as the community. Like I said, consensus number 3 overall. I think that there's just a little bit of more risk to his profile than what a lot of people are willing to admit right now. What are your thoughts on Evans?
I will say with Evans that he has a lot of talent, but I mean he hasn't produced as much as some other backs that we're going to talk about. I think he is very interesting because of how explosive he is. I mean, I do know for Ole Miss that they were more run heavy and more run committed in the past couple years. So he was a part of that last year. And I think their quarterback did have quite a few like rushing touchdowns. I feel pretty confident on that. So 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 that kind of plays a part into his stats. In his touchdown and rushing stats too. So
Sure.
so having part of that, I wouldn't worry about production per se, on that part. Yeah, yeah. The quarterback had only had one touchdown, I guess, but
Jackson Dart.
yeah,
Yeah. But 128 carries
yeah,
is a
yeah,
lot for,
yeah,
for
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
quarterback.
yeah, yeah, yes, yes. It was a lot of carries and a lot of yards taken away from
Mm-hmm.
Evan. So, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I mean, I will say that he has a lot of talent, and that if he played in a different system, like for instance, if he played in like Georgia's system, I think he would have flourished.
Yeah. Yeah, the biggest thing for me on Zach Evans is he's not even the best running back on his team. Quinshon Judkins, if I'm saying that right, he's a freshman this year. He just destroyed Zach Evans in pretty much every measurable you could ask for, and he just, yeah, really outproduced Zach Evans. And, that's a
Yeah.
little concerning to me for a junior who should be a lot more well prepared, played for TCU, now playing for Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin offense, loves the run a lot more. It's
Mhm.
just, I don't know. I just don't love what I see. I think that he's good, just not great, and that's where I think someone like Zach Charbonnet or Kendre Miller, they have that explosive next level above someone like Zach Evans. So that's the only thing with him. And, we'll see where he gets drafted ultimately, because I think for
Yeah.
this tier of guys, I think draft position is going to be huge. And I am not someone that likes to even care about, draft capital or anything like that. But if he doesn't go to a good spot, that's where I'm nervous, right? If he goes somewhere, let's say he goes to the Jets in round 4, as a Michael Carter replacement or something, decent draft capital in round 4, but it's just we'll see where he ultimately ends up. Again, I like him, I just don't love him, and that's kind of the biggest thing with Zach Evans. So, this is early rankings. We say this every episode, so if you're watching the overall video, I'm apologizing here for being repetitive. But if you're just watching this one, I just want to make sure it's clear that these are early rankings, right? So this is subject to change, but I'm going to be very interested to see where Zach Evans comes out in the combine, because when I watch Zach Evans, the other big thing about him is I don't think he's very fast. And if you're not super fast, that kind of takes away from your explosion a little bit. And if you're not getting those catches, and again, it's college, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. Who was it? Kenneth Walker didn't have a ton of usage in the passing game last year. Still, you saw this year with Seattle, he can do it just fine. So you always got to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. But I just don't think Zach Evans is that fast. And if he's not fast and explosive that way, I don't think he's that shifty in the backfield. So again, he's good, just not elite in any category. And the guys above him, like I said, I think that they're elite in some other category. So I just want to preface that, why I have him ranked so much lower than some of these other guys. It's not that I don't like him. It's just I like those other guys more. So Zach Evans, good prospect. Combine's going to be huge for him. What he tests at, how his explosive numbers kind of come in for him. And then draft capital as well is going to be very critical for him. So any other thoughts on Zach Evans?
No, it's kind of going off what you're saying. I do agree with all that. I feel he's a capable pass catcher, but like he doesn't do anything special. Like he's not. Like, he's solid at a lot of things, and I feel he's quick enough to make it in the NFL and make some people miss, but it's not really that game breaking talent that you would like to see in a running.
Sure. So Zach Evans, we'll see where he goes, but we're going to kind of transition. So we're going from Zach Evans, not one of the most explosive guys, to Sean Tucker, who might be the most explosive back in this entire class. The dude is ridiculous. So Sean Tucker, comes in at 5'10", 205, plays for Syracuse, and this guy is a track superstar. I think we mentioned it on the last episode. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the 40, there's a real chance that he runs like a 4.2 40 just because he is a track star. I think he runs like the 100-meter dash and the 200-meter dash in track and field. So he's going to be more than comfortable getting down in the sprinter stance that they do at the combine. He's going to just absolutely fly. Now, his stats, pretty good. Sean Tucker, I like him quite a bit. My biggest piece on Sean Tucker is he's a little smaller, right? 5'10", 205. He's a little bit more compact. He's shorter, 5'10". You like to see that if you're a little lower on the weight. Maybe he comes in, and the combine, again, will be something that we want to see for him, what he weighs in at officially. Because let's say he comes to the combine at 210, 212, somewhere in that range. Good size there. But if he's slower, then that's where it's going to be that trade-off. It's always the risk that these guys kind of have to play with themselves. Do I come in a little bit heavier and, I look a little bit better from that measurable, but, my 40 gets docked a little bit there. So it's something that you have to play with for him. But this guy can fly, man. So through his 3 years at Syracuse, 589 attempts, 3,000 yards, an average of 5.4 per carry, 27 touchdowns. And again, the biggest thing for him is 27 touchdowns through 3 years. Again, we just talked on Zach Evans, only 20 touchdowns through 3 years. It's just kind of concerning there, where everyone seems to be a little bit more explosive than Zach Evans. And again, I don't want to dogpile on Zach Evans, but Sean Tucker is very explosive. 64 catches, really didn't do much as a freshman. 36 catches this year for 254 yards. He was more explosive through the air last year. He had 20 catches for 255 yards, so he had the exact same yardage on 16 less catches. But, 2 touchdowns in each year, so 4 total through the air, 31 total touchdowns in college. Pretty good stats. I like Sean Tucker a lot. A lot of comps that I've kind of seen him to is the next Austin Eckler, but, I don't know if that's Austin Eckler is an outlier, man. That's what we always got to be careful with some of these guys of just giving them. Everyone always looks, especially this time, for the positives. Nobody likes to acknowledge the negatives, right? there's a lot of guys that come into the NFL at 205 and they just don't make it, right? They're not fantasy superstars like Austin Eckler. This guy could be. This guy legitimately could be because of his speed and his explosion and his hands. Like, I think he does have pretty good hands. Like, he is the guy that I think could be the next Austin Eckler. But again, you're betting on an outlier there. I'm fine with it, but I like some of those safer options a little bit more. What are your thoughts on Tucker here?
Well, it's with Tucker. I really like him. I mean, I think I like him more than Miller. You know, I think I would say he's probably my third or fourth guy, honestly. It's well, like with him being shifty and like having really quick feet and being able to switch direction is really going to play well in the NFL. You know, he's strong. He has soft hands, which also plays nice in the NFL. I do agree he's quick, but I don't I'm not sure how fast he's going to
Yeah.
is the big thing. With him playing at Syracuse, like he was playing a lot of ACC talent, and
Mhm.
that's not as comparable to like whether it's like SEC or Big Ten defenses. And they're just not as the other defenses that you may see in college football. So I think he's going to be just fine. I can see him being like a late day two pick.
Mhm.
Um, you know,
I think he's probably
going
going to end up
going
being a second round pick, to be honest with you.
yeah. I can see like a second, third round pick for him. It's pretty easily. I would really love to see him go to like San Francisco would be great.
Not another
But
one. No, no.
I
That's where
know,
running backs go to
I
die,
know,
man.
I know. I fully agree with that, and I really doubt they're going to take a
I'd
running
love to see
back
him go. You know where I'd love to
this
see him
year,
go?
but
I would love to see him go
where
to Arizona. James Conner's
that
getting
would be
older.
interesting. Yes,
James Conner's getting
yes,
older,
yes.
right? And I think that there's not a great option behind James Conner. And I think that Sean Tucker
I
could
agree.
be an explosive option, an explosive weapon. So we'll see what ultimately happens. But again, I think that his 40 time, if he comes in, let's say he comes in at 205, what he's kind of listed at now, 210 pounds, and he runs sub 4.3, which is possible. Man, it is going to explode his draft stock. A running back that can run that
Yeah.
fast, people are going to just be salivating over that just because of the potential matchup nightmare, right? You get
Yes.
this guy in space and he's gone, right? The NFL corners can't keep up with him, a lot of them.
Oh.
So, Sean Tucker, great prospect, has a lot
Mhm.
of pluses to his game. The only downside, again, for me, is just the size. And, that's the
Yeah.
only thing that I've
Yeah.
knocked him for. And honestly, he's someone that could probably jump up, and he probably will jump up into tier 2 for me. Probably Zach Evans will not. And ultimately, I'll have a
Mhm.
tier 2 of Kendre Miller, Sean Tucker, and Zach Charbonnet. But, this early on in the game, I just had to knock him a little bit for the size, and that's the only thing against him. I do like I think the talent, that he played against, that's also a little bit of a knock too. ACC not known
Mhm.
for great football, but
Yeah.
everything is there on paper for him to be an explosive option. So somebody to keep an eye on. Any last thoughts on Sean Tucker before we move on to the next guy here?
Nope.
All right, so the next guy we're going to talk on is going to be Tank Bigsby. So from Auburn, and what is his size listed at? So unfortunately, unlike his name, Tank and also Bigsby, he's not the biggest guy. He's only 6 foot 213, which is kind of surprising. If you're listed as Tank, you're kind of predicting like a Cordero Patterson type of guy. You know what I mean? Just a
Right.
huge mammoth human being, but that's not really
Right.
his game. And Tank Bigsby, he's someone that's very interesting. So played for Auburn, SEC team, so already there, a little bit higher of a talent pool that he's playing against. 540 carries through 3 years there, 2,900 yards, 25 touchdowns. Again, 62 catches, and you love to see this from these guys. Like all other than Zach Evans, pretty much all these top guys have been utilized heavily in the passing game, and that's why I think this is such a good class of running backs coming out here, is because all of them can catch, and they all can do it pretty well. 62 catches through his career for only 448 yards. Not the best there, but not a pivotal guy there. You look at someone like Sean Tucker, he had 20 carries for 250 yards, or 20 catches for 250 yards. Meanwhile, you got Tank at 30 catches for 180. He's someone that is good, again, not great, and I kind of put him very comparable to Zach Evans. I think Zach Evans is just a little bit better on the ground than someone like Tank Bigsby. You can see that kind of from their average per carry there. But I think Tank Bigsby does have a little bit better hands than Zach Evans, so it's kind of a flip of a coin there between those two specifically. Any thoughts on Tank Bigsby while we're getting into him?
Yeah. Yeah, it's on Bigsby, like he's another good prospect. Like I feel all these guys in tier 3 can be really, I don't want to say interchangeable, but like it's kind of just who you like,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. So, I think he's going to be fine. I know for this last year that like Bigsby ran behind a really really bad offensive line. I think that's going to help him in the NFL be more patient and kind of wait for holes to open up.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I actually feel that's a really positive for him. Honestly, and then playing in the SEC against more NFL style defenses and more NFL talent, is going to help him kind of project the same. I feel in the NFL.
Yeah.
I feel he's a decent pass catcher. I don't think he's anything special by any means. On pass catching
Yeah.
compared to Sean Tucker, who we're
Yeah.
talking about, has a soft hands, can kind of go out wide
Mm-hmm.
and and play that role. I can see Bigsby kind of being more like of a screen game kind of guy,
Yep.
and stuff like that.
And you didn't.
Which honestly, yeah,
I was gonna say you didn't see the highlight that I showed while you were talking there, but there is one catch where he does make a catch, kind of leaning forward in the hands, not necessarily.
yeah,
Some of these guys have to be body catches, and you get knocked for that. But I do think Tank is pretty good in the passing game. Again,
yeah,
he's not Christian McCaffrey, but
great
you
by
don't
any means.
always need a
Yes,
Christian McCaffrey. Look at
yeah,
Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette's not the best pass catcher, but he's good enough through the air that he can get it done. So Tank Bigsby, great prospect. I like him quite a bit, again, that we talked about. And it's just kind of funny. You look at his yearly stats here, and again, I don't watch enough college, so that's why Dale is a huge asset to this series of videos that we're going to be doing, because I don't know much about Auburn's offensive line. But when you say
yeah,
that, it actually does make a lot of sense based on his year-to-year kind of numbers here. So from his sophomore year to his junior year, he had about 50 less attempts on the ground. Lost about 130 yards on the ground as well, but he was more efficient, which does speak to your patience and your vision that you were talking on. He had more catches, which means that they were dumping it off to him a little bit more because they're trying to just get the ball out of their quarterback's hands. 9 more catches there over the course of the season there for him. But yeah, it's just kind of the biggest thing is you can see the dip in the in the attempts, the dip in the yardage, and then the increase in the catches, which just speaks perfectly to the offensive line was playing a little bit more poorly this last year. So one way that I recommend everybody out there to look at stats, because you're going to see all these numbers. Oh, but he was more efficient. But the offensive line wasn't bad. There's so many
hmm
stats out there that just can lie to you. But this is so when you can connect the dots here, right? That like we just did, you can see how it does speak to his good vision, because he was more efficient on the ground, even though he had a lot less yardage and everything like that. So something there just to think about. And sorry, I won't divert too much into how statistics can lie, but statistics can, as you know, lie. So
absolutely.
I'm sure that you can find a stat that makes him better than Bijan Robinson, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's not going to happen. So that is that on Tank Bigsby. Anything left that you want to talk on Tank before we move on to the last guy here? All right. The last guy for me in my tier number 3 is someone that's a little bit of a out of left field, I'll say. He's someone that I like quite a bit, and we had to Google how to pronounce his last name. I'm probably going to butcher this, so I'm going to try and get it right on the first time. Israel Abaniconda. There we go. Abaniconda. 5'10" or 5'11", 215 pounds out of Pitt. And this guy is someone that reminds me, Kendre Miller. I want to move this guy up, but it's Pitt. They play in the ACC. Big jump up year to year for him on the ground in terms of usage, and big decrease this last year in terms of volume through the air, his pass attempts, but massive uptick in efficiency. So just going through here, first couple years, 28 carries his freshman year, 123 his sophomore year, and then 239 this last year. It's like literally you can just watch him progress on the ground as he got better and better and better. And this is why I like this kid so much. I've railed on Zach Evans enough, but he had 20 touchdowns. He had 28 touchdowns through 3 years after, playing 6 games his freshman year, 13 last year, but only getting 123 carries, and then 239 for 20 touchdowns this last year. You'll love to see that. So total on the ground, 390 carries, 2,177 yards, 28 touchdowns. But this is where it's very interesting on him is through the receiving. He had 24 his sophomore year, 24 catches for 200 yards and a touchdown, 8.2 average there. This year, he cut that in half, 12 catches for 146 yards, 12.2 average there on the through the air. So he's someone that's very interesting. He's someone that I think is going to be slept on a little bit more in this draft class, and I think that he has all the potential there. I think that people are going to look at Pitt and, helmet scouting in the rookie class is a real thing. People can say they don't helmet scout all they want. People are already saying, well, Ohio State doesn't produce quarterbacks, so CJ Stroud would be terrible, right? But CJ Stroud is my number one guy here, and I'm not going to knock someone like Israel Abaniconda, there we go, because he's from Pitt, right? He has all the measurables that you're looking for. 5'11", 215 pounds. Probably going to come in around 220 to the combine. He looks very, very fast on tape, and I'll show a couple highlights here in just a minute. And he's very explosive, what we can see from his junior year here at Pitt. And you love to see the progression year to year, on the ground again. You just see that massive uptick in attempts every single year. You would like to see that receiving usage be kind of matched from year to year. It does stink that there was a pretty big decrease from his sophomore to junior year, but to offset that, he was way more efficient. He had almost the same amount of yards through the air with half as many catches. So you love to see that there. So any thoughts on Israel before while I show some highlights here?
Well, it's the biggest thing on him. Like, I feel he's very capable of of running, and he's a decent route runner. I mean, again, it's nothing special. Like, I feel he's very. It's a very limited route tree that he ran at Pitt, so I don't feel that really helps him a whole heck of a lot. I'm pretty sure Pitt played more of a pro style offense, so that's more like more of the offense that you're going to see, obviously in the NFL. So I think that might fit his running style better. I mean, I am worried about. I wouldn't say about his size, but more of his frame, his frame and stuff like that. So, I see that he does have like the measurables, but I kind of think he's like a poor man's Tank Bigs. I would much rather have Biggs personally than Abanaconda.
It's a tough one, isn't
I
it?
was I was really trying hard. I was really trying hard to
It's
on
gonna
that
be
one. But yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
it's gonna be a tough
y-
one that people are gonna have to learn. But no, the one thing with
absolutely.
Pitt, you have to take into account. So they got Kendon Slovis as their quarterback this year.
Mm,
They did lose Kenny Pickett, who, was a super senior. I think he played 5 years with Pitt. It's a big change there in the offense, so that could explain the big dip in his receiving this last year, because he's got a whole new guy throwing him the ball. But I think that Israel is someone that is, like I said, he's going to be slept on. He's probably going to be a mid-second round pick, and I think that he should be a top 6 guy. So that's going to be where the massive value is in guys like this. Now, we'll see where he ultimately gets drafted. Probably going to be a 4th round draft pick. I don't know if I don't really care. If he gets 3rd round or better, though, oh boy, I'm going to be all over this guy in pretty much every single league. So here's hoping that. And you can see, you couldn't see, but the viewers out there, if you're listening on YouTube, watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on Spotify, I think I do have video on Spotify now. I haven't checked it yet, but hopefully it's working there. But if you're watching the podcast, you can see that in those highlights, it's very hard to bring him down with arm tackles. Like, he's not going to go down from an arm tackle. You have to wrap him up and really bring him down. So that tells me that he plays with a little bit of power, and he's got that explosive factor to him as well. That's why, when I was talking about him versus Kendre Miller, I really like him just as much as Kendre Miller. Honestly, I think that my top 6, if he gets 3rd round or better, is going to be probably Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, Zach Charbonnet, Kendre Miller, Sean Tucker, and then this guy. So that's how much I like this guy. I'm planning a flag on him early, but I do understand there is some risk. The conference takes into account that a little bit, but again, I'm not going to helmet scout there. Pitt has been good for a while. They play some good teams and some good games out there. So don't want to just knock them just for playing there. And we've seen guys come out of lower schools all the time, right? So don't want to just knock someone too much. Isn't Saquon from Pitt too, by the way? Or Penn?
He went to Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State. That's who I'm mixing them up with. But yeah, we've seen guys come to the NFL from smaller schools before and be just fine. So just because he's from Pitt, don't let that deter you too much from him. But someone I'm optimistically skeptical on here, where I think that he could definitely make a big difference here in your rookie draft. Someone that you can grab a little bit later, you're not going to have to break the bank on, and he's going to be a stud for a long time there. Any other thoughts on him before we move on to the next episode?
I mean, I can see that, but I honestly see him being like a rotational guy. I don't see him being anything super special.
Sure.
That's how I see it. I don't see a lot of these guys being full-time starters. I only really see probably 2 guys being really full-time starters, with Robinson and Gibbs. I really think Abaconda can contribute, but I think other guys that you have would probably.
It's possible, but the one thing too with running backs, more and more and more, each and every year they're going more towards committees. The NFL is cyclical, right? So eventually we're gonna have workhorse, powerhouse running backs come back, where it's all workhorses everywhere for every single team. But for now, everybody's kind of going to a committee. So if he goes somewhere, I think that he has the talent that he can kind of stand out. The best comp for him, for me, is Dave Montgomery. And Dave Montgomery came from a smaller school. People didn't expect him to be as good in the NFL or be a workhorse for Chicago. There was always, who was the little guy that they had? Tariq Cohen was with him forever. And then most recently, what's his name? Who's the backup in Chicago? Do you remember? I'm blanking on his name. Yes, Khalil Herbert, right? And Khalil Herbert, another guy, perfect example of a guy that came from a smaller school but has been very, very good. So I think that's kind of the role that Israel's going to have to take in the NFL. He's not going to be drafted to be someone's starter, but he's going to be drafted to a backfield. Let's say he goes to Miami. There's no way in hell that he's not going to take over the backfield in Miami within a season, right? The Tyler Algier for Miami there. So someone that I like quite a bit, but yeah, we'll see where his combine stats kind of come in. We'll see where the draft capital comes in, but someone to pay attention to now, so you're not surprised by him. Kind of like an Antonio Gibson type of guy here, but Gibson is a little different because he was a wide receiver in college. But yeah, that's it for this tier. So this tier 3, we've got Zach Evans, Sean Tucker, Tank Bigsby, and Israel Abanikanda. There we go. So thank you guys. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with tier number 4.